Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to a rainy Saturday morning, but we're in April. I hope everybody's doing well. We don't have our COVID numbers yet, but obviously a lot more people are getting vaccinated in Nashville, 16 and up. If you haven't gotten vaccinated, please do so. The faster we get people vaccinated, the better off we will be. I know there's been restrictions lifted in terms of going outside with masks. Anyway, keep informed, go get vaccinated. It is important. Today we are honored to have as our guest Rashida Fatuga, who is the founder and CEO of Gideon's Army. Rashida, welcome, and go ahead and unmute. There you go. And if you will introduce your friend right next to you, that would be great.
Good morning, everybody. I have my student, my child, Dontrell Spencer, sitting with me today.
Hi, I'm Dontrell. I'm part of Gideon's Army too.
All right, Dontrell, welcome. We're glad you're both here. So as I mentioned before we started, I usually will ask a silly question. We were noticing that you have a picture up on the wall right above Dontrell's right shoulder. He's going to take it down and show it. And Rashida, if you will tell us what that is.
Can y'all see it? It's a portrait. My daughter did, and it looks just like me. Yes, freckles for days.
It looks just like you. Very nice. And did she add the little lettering at the bottom?
She did. These are all her little stickers.
That's very nice.
She's got my little part in the middle and my hair going to the side. And lashes, so you know the difference between my eyes and the freckles.
That is very beautiful. At one point, when I first saw it, I thought maybe Dontrell had done that, but it was your daughter. Is that right?
No, she draws much better.
Okay. All right. That's very helpful to know. All right. So, Dontrell, how do you know Rashida?
Well, this goes way back, man. When I was so little, I used to go to camp, and I remember the first time I seen Rashida. I asked her, "Can I help her with her bag, with her kids' bags and stuff?" Mm-hmm. And pretty much, her kids go to camp too, so me and her kids built the bond in a week. When I came back,
how old were you? What?
I was about 12, 13 years old. Maybe even younger than that.
Yeah,
I was think 10 or 11, yes. Middle school, yeah, way past that. But after that, I seen her, took her back to the car. Me and her had a good conversation. She met my mom. And pretty much our relationship just built from there. Every year I would see her from camp every year. And it just really, our relationship just.
Then I showed up at the.
Yes, that's what was a relief. She showed up at my school and with Gideon's Army. And that was my first time being introduced into that program.
Yeah.
It was a blast. Like, I used to be so bad till she came, and she was my mama in school, so I couldn't do nothing. It was either whoopings, timeouts, or just you gonna get home. Man,
He said whoopings. Y'all know I did not whoop him.
Man,
right. I think.
But the imminent threat, I'm here for it.
I think that's going to be one of the questions I'm going to ask later about. Well, let's get started. I'm glad you both are here. So let me tell you who's on the call. We have Councilmember John Rutherford is on the call. We have Judge Jennifer Smith on the call. Judge Allegra Walker is on the call. Our school board member Frida Player-Peters is on the call, and our county clerk Brenda Wynn is on the call. So we have a lot of people.
Friends, I have friends on the call.
And we'll announce if we get some more people, and we have a host of people on the call. I know people are very, very interested. So Rashida, let's start with what I always ask everybody, and that is, tell us about yourself. Where are you from? How did you get to Nashville? Just a little bit about yourself.
Well, first of all, I don't know if y'all can see. I can't half see y'all. I got like 50% vision going on. I got a shiner that I earned, not necessarily proudly, but kind of proudly. Just doing work with these children. I had a kid that had an episode, and I ended up being the like wrong place at the wrong, my eye was in the wrong place at the wrong time as he's swinging and having a fit, and he didn't mean to hit me in the eye, but I caught it like a G, and here I am. So if you see me close my eye, that's why like looking into the screen, it actually hurts. I have an eye patch, but I didn't want to be over here looking like Slick Rick. So
you're welcome to wear it if it makes you
well, if I need it, I will put it on, but right now I'm okay. So I'm from Cincinnati, Ohio. I came here, went to school, and I never left. I ended up meeting Representative Lois D. Berry. She became a mentor of mine, and I didn't want to leave her. I didn't want to leave the children that I had built relationships with through Metro Public Schools as through my student teaching. So I became a school teacher here. I taught at Carter Lawrence Math and Science Magnet School, taught at Aiken Elementary. And of course, I like to say that I was all of my children's favorite teachers. And I just really loved it. And as time went on, like there are children who, wiped their noses and tied their shoes and went to their houses. They came to my house. I was a very kind of non-traditional teacher where the relationships that we built were just very authentic and natural, just very natural. But these children who love school, who love coming to school every day, they started to hate school, after they kind of left my classroom, getting locked up, interactions with the police, and then I had a student who was killed. And so that's how I started this work. But I'm a mom. I have 2 birth children, several children who I've either taken custody of or I've adopted. I love motherhood and I love being a teacher. I only left the classroom to figure out what to do for my children. I like to paint.
Good. Tell me, okay, so we had this discussion once. I love Cincinnati. I'm a big Reds fan. Are you a Reds fan? Do you watch the Cincinnati Reds?
I won't say I'm a fan, but I did grow up, like my grandfather used to love baseball. So I grew up watching the Reds like every freaking weekend while he ate peanuts and baseball. And then Carl Lindner, who was an owner of the Cincinnati Reds, was actually a mentor of mine as well, which was really cool. Got to fly in his jet and everything. And so I probably love the Reds even more, like after having that experience with him. He took me on a flight with Larry King. The coolest thing, I have pictures, yes, who recently passed away. So yeah.
Very interesting
story. Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that. And I always ask this question, and you've answered it, but the question is Gold Star chili or Skyline chili? But I don't think you eat meat. Is that right?
Right. Neither. I'm vegan. But back in the day, I don't even remember. I ain't ate meat in so long.
All right.
Sarah said Skyline. I think it was Skyline, honestly, but
that's not the right answer, Rashida.
I don't remember.
It's Gold Star.
My granddad loved Gold Star. That was like his last meal was Gold Star chili.
Well, the next time I go to Cincinnati, excuse me, I am gonna get a can of Gold Star, a can of Skyline, and then we're gonna have a little. Well, I don't know how we can have competition. We'll have to get the meat out of it. Maybe I'll just bring it. How about that? All right. Tell me what did you teach in Metro schools?
I taught first grade at Aiken. Absolutely loved it. And I taught 4th grade at Carter Lawrence, and I loved it equally as much. Different challenges, different experiences, but they're still like at fourth grade, they're still like loving and cuddly and all that stuff. Really, even in high school, they are, So Yeah, I taught first and fourth grade.
Dontrell, are you still cuddly in high school?
Come on, yes.
Okay.
I was a baby in high school, but I got older, you know. That's what mom does. I call her mom. She's a mom to everybody. So yeah, she has earned that right, not just for her birth kids, but for everybody. So
Well, so Mom, tell us how you created. How did Gideon's Army start? How did you get there? And then for people who don't know about it, what is it? How did it get started? And then what does it do?
Well, I left the classroom trying to figure out like what to do to help my fellow teachers, just keep students in the classroom, support students to stay in the classroom and be successful, to help parents. I had like this really unique advantage in being a school teacher, being a favorite school teacher, and being a mom that I could be a part of like teacher culture. I could be a part of student culture, parent culture. Like I wasn't an outsider in any of those aspects. But it really wasn't until my student Lamar Hughes was killed that Gideon's Army really got going. Like we kind of dabbled around and just tried to figure out what are the highest leverage points for change. But then standing at his funeral, I spoke, and I feel like I was only supposed to like read a scripture or something. And like, I don't know, something took over me. And I just said, you know what? I can't do it. We got to do something about our children being murdered. And this was 10 years ago. I said, we're going to start an organization. We're going to call it Gideon's Army. And like after the service, it was so many people just from the Edge Hill community that came and said that they wanted to start. One person was Wayne Hill, Alvin Hill. He did a lot of work with the Democratic Party later on. Just a whole bunch of people from the Edge Hill community. Dr. Alan Kaysen, who was a Nashville Freedom Rider, ended up connecting with him. People just joined, and the concept and the name of Gideon's Army came from Marion Wright Edelman. She was from is the founder of Children's Defense Fund. She was also one of my mentors. She introduced me to Miss Lois D. Berry and asked Miss D. Berry to look after me in Nashville. But Miss Edelman always had this vision of a grassroots organization for children called Gideon's Army, reminding us to not begrudge small beginnings, to focus on the small committed few who are willing to do work to make big change. That it doesn't have to be this big monumental group to do work. And so standing at his funeral, that's really where it started. And then we had several meetings, and it just grew from there. And Gideon's Army is a grassroots organization. Grassroots meaning that it's really led and owned by the people who are experiencing the issues that we focus on: school to prison pipeline, youth violence, mass incarceration, homelessness, these things. And we focus in kind of 4 primary areas, which is education, public safety, criminal justice, and community. And within the community, that gives us space to build like our own creative systems and processes for justice, like outside of the traditional justice system, like focusing on restorative justice, where we look at how communities define public safety, how do communities define justice, and how can we build relationships and focus on healing and repairing harm when harm occurs, whether we go through the traditional justice system or we figure it out together as a community.
Okay, so where does Gideon's Army, you founded it? You've got these things that you're concerned about: education, public safety, criminal justice, community. For the average citizen, for people listening, tell me how you implement your strategy. What do you do? And that includes, somebody asked a question about what is a violence interrupter? So how does it, what do you all do to do what you want to do? How does it work?
So Gideon's Army does a lot. It's always hard for me to summarize because it doesn't even make sense how much we do, but because it's owned by the people who are impacted, I think that they just go the extra mile because it really, means something different to them because it's their friends, their family who are being impacted. It's them who are being impacted. So we do grassroots work, which means that we push for systemic change. We are pushing for Nashville to become a more restorative city, to focus on rehabilitation and healing and care, as opposed to focusing on traditional justice, which is criminalizing, which recidivism rates are high. Like just telling people stop doing what's not working. Let's think outside the box. But then we also create like really innovative programs that we put into the schools, that we put into the courts, into communities, public safety, which would actually fit into the community as well with our violence interruption program. So we push for change, but you can't have change and then there's a vacuum. There's a black hole because it always fills with something else. Whether you believe in like metaphysical, physical principles, whatever, it has to be replaced with something. And oftentimes the system doesn't know what to do to replace it with. They don't know how to make it better. So Gideon's Army does the research to understand what are research-based best practices that can replace the things that we've been doing that are harmful, that are better for the people who've been victimized, better for the community, bringing healing to the community, and rehabilitation for a person who's caused harm. So
Okay.
Grassroots change, innovative programs.
Okay, and what is your research, based upon what you've been doing, what does your research show?
Well, research definitely says that mass incarceration doesn't work. That, when people offend and they go through the prison system, that they come back out and there's no support, there's no change. Even if you're looking at schools with suspension and expulsion rates, you suspend a student and let me give you an example. There was a fight at Procon. It was 11 girls, okay? They all get expelled. Expulsion in metro schools is 10 or more days. They can always come back. Well, sometimes they can come back, sometimes they don't. But an expulsion is 10 or more days. So these girls were all expelled for 10, 11 days. They come back to school. What happens? Fights. Because they just went home and the issue wasn't resolved at all. But what we know from adolescent brain development is that you have to teach conflict resolution. You have to teach conflict transformation. You have to teach social, emotional learning skills. All of these things have to be taught and developed if you want to see change. So Procon brought me in. It was so many different fights. I had to make a chart to see, okay, you fought you two jumped her, y'all two, bringing them together one-on-one, having these one-on-one conversations, then the two that fought, or the groups that fought each other, and then putting everybody in a circle once they were ready. So you put them in a circle and they have these conversations, and these girls actually ended up being the ones who founded the violence interruption program, who founded the Gideon's Army, like the youth leadership program, because on a hands-on level, they saw the difference between being expelled and coming back fighting and having these conversations and learning how to transform the conflict. And so what research says is teaching these children, building these skills can transform their lives. It transformed their lives, like in schools, better academic achievement, better attendance, but then even later on in life, they perform better. Like all of my girls, they're doing so well from college to trade school to starting their businesses to motherhood, all of these different things. And so just the way that we've been doing things haven't been working. And so thinking outside the box, even with public safety and the Driving While Black report, learning. I mean, we could have come out and just said policing is racist and all of these things, but we really wanted to understand what was happening, because maybe there are racialized outcomes that don't have racial intent, or maybe there is racial intent. You never know. And so looking and doing the research, we found that the way that Nashville polices with the traffic stops, not only do they really not find much on people, but it doesn't help to reduce crime. So once we understood that, then we can look and say, okay, so what really works in communities? What works to reduce crime? What works to reduce violence? The students at Procon, it was 75 students at Procon who came together after Driving While Black, and still looking at the issues of youth violence in their communities. And they did research to understand like violence prevention, violence interruption, violence intervention. And they picked like from like the best models and put it together for the Gideon's Army model that we have here.
Okay, so tell me again, specifically on violence interruption. So these young people came up with this concept and the idea. So exactly how is it done? In this case with the girls, hopefully they stop fighting. But what are the techniques? How do you all step in and stop violence? Specifically, how do you do it?
Is Hambino on the call? Because I would love for him to hop in, and I can answer while y'all see if he's on. And I think Dontrell is feeling kind of passionate about this question because he's over here shifting.
Dontrell, you can start. We'll see if we can get Hambino in. Yeah.
Okay, so I've been in Gideon's Army for 3 years, and the techniques and strategies we help to stop violence is it's quite simple. What we do is that Miss Rashida, when she had a classroom at Pearl, we would get together. If there's been a fight between two people, we'll put them in the same room together. And what we can do is that we will they give us an option. They have us let us talk to each other. They'll Hambino, he was an inspiration. He used to help me. Gooch used to help me too. That's on the call. What we do is that they let us talk, and they'll hear our thoughts and our opinions. And then not only that, they will help us find better ways to solve the problem. They'll give us options. That is something that you need between young people. Young people don't have a lot of options, but with Gideon's Army, you have so many options to choose from. And they give you those. They give you that comfort. Most kids don't have comfort where they're at most times. But once you get around Gideon's Army and those violent interrupters, you got all the comfort. Everything you need is there. They there with you every step of the way. So that's how you solve your problems amongst you talking, hearing what they got to say. They hearing what you have to say. They help you find ways to do things differently. I feel like that is the best way you really can solve problems in this world right now. And against
and that is in the schools. So we have violence interruption in the schools where we had weekly mentor groups, we had clubs, we had grief support. We partnered with a live hospice and took children to grief camp. Did you go? Yeah, he went to the grief camp as well. And then you come back, and every week you're doing art, kind of art therapy style activities after school, weekly grief circles during school. So like a lot of people think about violence interruption as only one thing, but it's extremely multifaceted in the schools. And then there's violence interruption in the community. Hambino, can you talk more about what it looks like in the community?
Yes, how everybody doing? I'm Hambino Godbody, and I'm a violence interrupter. And I was born and raised in Davidson County, Nashville, Tennessee, and I was born without a father figure. So my mom was like did drugs the first 10 years of my life, and I grew up in the most violent projects in Davidson County, which is called Cumberland View Apartments today. And it was like a 40-60 chance or a 30-70 chance for me to even be on this call speaking to you guys today, alive and free, with all of the circumstances that we go through in a community that lack of knowledge of empowerment. So, to make a long story short, violence interruption, how we handle it is we understand, because I was once a part of the problem years ago. So by me understanding the sickness that my people suffering, and by me having a cure to cure myself, I understand what the cure is and what they need in order to see situations differently. So when we're inside the communities, we know how to approach the people, and by me being from Davidson County, they already know me. I'm well known in the entire city within the communities. So them seeing me walking in the light that I'm walking in today just gives them inspiration, and it also they also have a lot of respect, knowing that we are not hopeless. Because I'm pretty sure, everybody say they're interested in violence interruption and want to know what a successful violence interruption look like. I'm that. Hold on one second. I got a 2-year-old walking around, but I'm gonna get him on back, where he need to be
That's okay. We have those types of interruptions. It's
at.
all right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it could be a violence interruption also because he got a car in his hand. But no, growing up in these communities, we lack a certain love and respect for each other. And when you don't have a proper love and respect for yourself, it's hard for you to reflect that on other people. So by me knowing this, I was just in a situation 2 weeks ago where some guys from out of town, we was having a barbecue. And some guys from out of town walked within the community with big guns on them. And then I'm talking about walking and pull their guns out. And when they pull their guns out, community members, a couple of community members grabbed the first person who pulled his gun out, and the other person that was with him started shooting. Mind you, as a violence interrupter, we are unarmed. We don't have body armor on. We don't have walkie-talkies to call back up or anything like that. So in the midst of these guys trying to shoot, when community members grabbed them, a little girl got shot and grazed in the foot by one of those guys out there. So I was able to grab one of the guys and drag him out the street and kind of like hold him down in the grass while the other guy took off running, and then some more people that was with them pulled up in a truck and walked up on me as if they were gonna shoot me, but they were just wanting to get their friend who came over there to cause trouble and get him to the hospital because he had got wounded. So I was able to stop a lot of killings that day. And I don't know what gave me the courage or the strength to even walk up on people in the middle of guns and bullets flying everywhere. But I did it, and I don't have a reason to explain why I did it. But, my job is necessary, and I put my life on the line daily just to stop the violence. And that's one way we did yesterday. We stopped the mass killing because they came over there to kill. And we were able to just stop it. So, and a lot of things we do is when we go into these communities, we give them something that they don't get on a daily basis, and that's love and respect. And we also provide them resources. So by us going in that community, we give the community a different kind of energy. We set up barbecues so we can all sit down and break bread together and become family. So we create an energy of peace, an energy of love within the community. Right now, we in Cumberland View, real heavy right now. We're almost at 1 year with no violence within that community, meaning that that's one of the most violent communities in Davidson County, Nashville, Tennessee. And we almost got it 1 year of no violence, meaning no one's over there that's from that community is hurting anyone in that community. The men, women, the children, and the elders are able to walk around that community safe, knowing for almost 1 year, no one has committed any violent crimes in Cumberland View.
Which is just amazing. So Rashid, I'll go back to you. What I see is, and Hambino, I think, was saying it, is he talked about love, respect. It's a community feeling. It's communication. It's trust. It's building relationships.
It's relationship building, community building, interrupting violence, before it occurs, preventing retaliations. It is mentoring, connecting people to jobs, connecting people to counseling, grief counseling, mental health care. It is having a structure so that when people are coming, being released from incarceration, that there's a structure that they can fall into, that there are resources that they can be connected to. I would say that those are the meat and potatoes of violence interruption. But one thing that we don't talk about often is within 24 hours of a violent event occurring, or of somebody being harmed from violence, we have a trauma responder who goes out and finds that family and triages that family. If the person has been killed, then we're helping to plan the funeral. We're speaking at the funerals. We're paying for funerals. I want to say we paid around $14,000 last year towards funeral expenses. Yeah, about $14,000, a little bit more towards funeral expenses. And if the person survives, so for example, the little girl who was grazed in the foot, 24 hours, Deidre is there, Hambino is there, meeting with the family, finding out what they need, going with them to hospital appointments. We had one little girl, she was from Procon, who was shot in a drive-by shooting. Well, her mom had stage 4 cancer. Her father was incarcerated in Arkansas. She didn't have any family that even showed up to the hospital. We were the only ones there at the hospital. She didn't have anywhere to go because her mother couldn't take care of her. Well, one of our Gideon's Army members, she was 18, so we didn't really have to go through DCS for her care. But we had someone who was in nursing who took her in and nursed her wounds. Our partnerships with Vanderbilt are so tight that she didn't have, insurance. We were able to help her with that. But until then, they saw her, just for free. Just one of the doctors saw her for free. And so it looks different with each situation. But I think violence interruption is one of the best things to happen to Nashville. The issue is that we just don't have enough people. We don't have enough violence interrupters, because it's a lot to become a violence interrupter. You can't just come off the streets and be hired. You have to prove your credibility. It's a lot. And so even when we hire new people, we call them GIDs in training. They have to go through, a lot of over a year training before they can even be called violence interrupters.
Okay, so let me ask you a question, and Hambino, you can answer this, or Jamel is on the phone, but getting a lot of chat box stuff about the relationship with the police department. And I know Cumberland View is right next to the North Police Precinct. Tell us, well, maybe two things. What's the relationship right now? Is it getting any better? And maybe a third question, how do we make all this work together? Okay.
So I would like to start, Hambino, if that's okay.
Yes. Sure.
When we started, before we started the violence interruption program, Gideon's Army engaged every single city agency that we possibly could. We paid Cure Violence to come down and do an assessment, worked Gideon's Army, MMPD, Cure Violence to even change the way that violence, gunshots and contact shootings, everything is reported. If you look on the MMPD website, you'll see that the maps are more visual than they were before. And then we brought all of these agencies together, MMPD, MDHA, MMPS, Metro Human Relations Commission, Metro Arts, all of these agencies came together for a day training around violence interruption, restorative justice. And then on day 2, we actually did an assessment of where are the shootings happening, what type of shootings, where, what streets, you could look and click the date that it happened, the street, who was involved. Like we went really, really deep. And together with the children, because it was still led by children from Pearl Cone High School, with the children, Gideon's Army, these agencies, we decided on North Nashville. And so we've done everything that we can to work with the police. I would say that our relationship would be complex. I would say, you know, there are good aspects, but there are a lot of challenges. You know, we're told to take care of our communities, but then when Gideon's Army moves to take care of our communities, then, and we work with people who are at risk, then it seems that sometimes MNPD tries to attach the risk to Gideon's Army instead of understanding that, I mean, this is what we do. We take chances on people. I think Hambino can speak to that part first, but I really wanted the history to be known that we were extremely respectful in even how we started this violence interruption program.
All right, Hambino.
Yes, and we most definitely our job is to deal with the sick, you know, in a spiritual sense. You know, the same way, you know, when Jesus came around, he was dealing with those people that the public down and considered hopeless. So, you know, I was once considered hopeless, and I've proven that I wasn't a bad person doing bad things. I was a good person doing bad things because of my lack of knowledge. But when it comes with the Metro Police, we just got to be honest, because I don't sit down with the commanders and I deal with them every day within the communities. They don't know how to deal with the community. They don't know how to build a relationship with the communities, especially you know, when you from the projects, what they call it, or from these different neighborhoods, and you're a police officer that never grew up around these kind of mentalities, then you just don't know how to operate with these people. And that's just the truth. It ain't no bad thing. It ain't no, I ain't saying it's a good or a bad thing, it's just the truth. So the police will have to sit down, because I deal with them every day. They'll come in the communities and just park their cars on the side of the communities and sit in their cars for hours, or they'll walk through the community and don't speak. And then even if they speak, it's not real. The energy is not real. And you know, when you're talking to people that you just know is not connected to you, the police need to be willing to let us train them on how to engage with the community, because they just don't know how to do it. And that's not no bad thing. It's just we need to be able, like with me, myself personally, I deal with them every day. I'm willing to learn from them, and I engage with them in a positive manner every day. But they need to be willing to sit down with us and allow us to train them on how to build better relationships with the community, because they cannot. I have it on camera, I have it on tape. The police don't come over there and telling me about violent situations going on and telling me that they need my help because they just unable to do it. I got this recorded. You know what I mean? And it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just a thing that we need to sit at the table and come together and really make a difference, because we can really train them. We can really train them and show them how to engage with the community, because you know I'm from the community. I'm what you call a credible messenger. So I don't care if I'm in Cheatham Projects, Dodge City Projects, Andrew Jackson, 23rd, Bud Cannon, or anywhere in Southeast or West Nashville, the community is going to engage with me in a positive manner, because they have literally seen me come from a destructive mindset into a righteous mindset. And to be honest, I'm a miracle, humbly speaking. To be alive and free right now, I'll be 42 years old in September. I'm a miracle, because I could be dead or sitting in jail for the rest of my life, reminding you that I was locked up for murder in 2003, because I guess, you know, just hanging around a wrong crowd and things of that nature right there, the police put a murder on me. And when I say this, I had to go to trial and get found not guilty on a murder case. A year or two later, they catch people on the phone who really did it that I don't know who they are. They're not from where I'm from. And they arrested other people for the same murder that I had to go on trial for. So if I would have been found guilty, I would have got 51 years for a murder that I didn't commit. So I've suffered the injustice of this system. And being resurrected from that mental death, I don't have any hate towards that system. I have understanding with that system. So I engage with the police every single day. I call Commander Graves at least once a week. Here lately, I done talked to Commander Graves probably every day these past 7 days. And even the shootout I was telling you about, the police don't even know the little girl who got shot. They don't have any information about the little girl who got shot. They don't know where she is. They're not doing anything to assist her because of their lack of knowledge or their lack of community building.
Connection.
Because if the community trusted them, they would tell them about the little girl. But we have the little girl has came back to the community where she was shot because the community was not danger. It was outside people, and actually they were from Indiana. But I engage with the police every day, so like. We just really need to put it on the table because we don't mind. We don't have anything against police officers. You feel what I'm saying? We just have we have a duty, and I do this to protect and serve the community the same as they do this. But they have no engagement skills, no communication skills with the people.
Okay, so Hambino, let me ask you a question. You indicated that at least at Cumberland View, it's been almost a year since we've had any serious violence. So whatever's going on over there is working. So
Yes.
the question is, how do we get Gideon's Army and the police to understand, to work with each other and understand from each other? So I've always been a big believer in community policing, which I understood to be police officers getting to know the community. But there seems to be a gap. You know, you can't just pull up in a car and just sit there and not talk to people. There's got to be interaction. You've got to have confidence both ways. How do we get this? Your program seems to be working. How do we get people to buy in? How do we get the police?
Okay, let me answer this right here, right? Your question is, instead of trying to add more gids in the community, you're trying to get us to directly connect with the police. And we don't have no problem with that. But the thing is, if you see what we're doing is working, why aren't people sitting down giving us enough funding where we can have all the communities under protection and provision like we got Cumberland View, right? You know, we don't have no issues with the police. How they are the law. They can lock up anybody up on this phone call right here, on this Zoom call. They can. They have that power right there. So we engage with the police in a righteous manner. But it's like right now you asking us how can we work with the police versus just focusing on how y'all can provide for Gideon's Army to be able to do what we do and stop the violence, and the police assist us however they can. And if the police want to work with us, they need to learn engagement skills. They need to learn how to communicate with police officers. It's like, I'm blessed to be able to go in a room, I don't care if you black, white, brown, red, or blue, and able to communicate and connect with people. But some white people just have no communication skills with black people based on mentalities. It ain't about being good or bad. It's just, you know, based on mentalities. And a lot of these black people that's growing up in these communities, they growing up with a lack of knowledge. In these schools, they're not teaching black, they educating us about us being slaves. And they giving us the empowerment pictures are Thomas Jefferson's and George Washington's who owned slaves. So, you know, they're not teaching us true history about ourselves that'll empower us and teach us how to love ourselves. Because in properly loving ourselves, we can reflect the love for self on others. And that lack of knowledge is missing. And that's the kind of knowledge that we put into the people. We don't put F the police into the people. We put love yourself, because in loving yourself, you'll be able to even understand the police. So our arms are open to anybody that want to work with Gideon's Army. But Gideon's Army, we have the cure. If you have a doctor that got the cure to the AIDS virus or to cancer, would you put him up and set him up to treat the people? Yes. We have the cure to violence, and my proof is myself. My proof is myself first, and then what we're doing, particularly in Cumberland View, because we're heavier there than anywhere, but we go anywhere in Nashville, Tennessee, and you've been over there with me. You've been over there with me and seen how we engage. And it's not only in Cumberland View, what you've seen, you can see that anywhere you take us in Nashville, Tennessee.
Okay, so
And
let
it's
me ask you.
people are unwilling to fund us.
So let me ask you a question. Mine is, yeah, I've seen how you work, and it's working. So, you know, I would I would ask the Chief Drake the same question. It's like there's a program over there that's working. How do we make this work? So go to the funding part. Okay, so obviously there's a question about, and I think it was LT, who was also an interrupter, who said, the statement that kind of stayed with me was, you know, we're out here doing this work. Where are the people behind us? Because we're working hard in making it work. Where is the people behind us helping us make it work? In this case, it's about funding. So Rashida, I'm going to turn back to you. Bino led it up to this. It was, how are you being funded now? And what do you need? What do you need in order to take this type of program that obviously seems to be working well? And how do we fund it? What do you need to make this work in other parts of the city?
So our biggest funder is the Department of Human Services. Shouts out to former Commissioner Danielle Barnes for being really the first to believe in us, because we had no funding. We went from nothing to $450,000 over a 2-year period. Our current budget is right at about $1.5 million. 527,000 of those dollars went direct service for COVID and tornado relief, like in the hands of the people paying rent, helping an additional almost 20,000 went to saving people's homes from tax foreclosure. We really believe in putting money in the hands of the people, and Jamel can talk more about that. Our plans for the future with moving Nashville forward. But for the first time, so we started out like heavily based on a cure violence model, really hoping that the city would buy into that and to the research behind cure violence, the training and everything, and we got nothing. So for the first time in cure violence 10-year history, Gideon's Army raised our own money. Usually we're funded. Usually cure violence programs are funded by the city directly or the state directly, not through like Department of Human Services, but like from the governor, like in the budget, or from the city in the budget. And we're the first organization in their history to raise money and to launch our own program. What we've asked for is somewhere around $6 million so that we can be in just all of the metro public housing areas. We have a small contract with MDHA. Where they pay for 2 people to be in Cumberland View, but we have eight staff members who are directly accessible to the Cumberland View community. We just recently lost one a couple of days ago, Cleveland Shaw, and the investment that MDHA is making, like, you know, grateful for it, but it's not enough to do the work that we need to do, especially when, you know, Gideon's Army had a lot to do with paying people's rent in Cumberland View, paying people's rent in Cheatham and Andrew Jackson. So a lot of that money is kind of cycling back to them when it comes to direct assistance. But what we would like to do, it would be nice to be all over Nashville, but I understand, you know, I also don't want to grow too fast. And so to expand one and be fully staffed for North Nashville, because it will take probably at least 15 staff members to be all over North Nashville. We have that 8 that is focused on Cumberland View, and then we spread it thinly across North Nashville. And that would just be for violence interruption, but to be in all the public housing areas. So in Edge Hill, JC Napier, you know, Casey, just to expand there. And then the other thing that I think that we need is just for people to call the mayor's office and show support for Gideon's Army, to say, look, what we're hearing and what we're seeing from tornado relief, COVID relief, violence interruption, like Gideon's Army, we're doing things that we didn't even set out to do. We started off in the schools, focusing on helping these children in school. We have a 97% graduation rate. In the 4 years that we were at Pearl Cone, we were awarded, we became recognized as a top community school. We had a 70% reduction in suspensions, 77% reduction in expulsions. Like, the things that we're doing are working, but it's like we still have to fight to prove ourselves. Where MNPD continues to get this huge budget to do things that statistically are ineffective, we are doing things that are working. In our first year, violence went down 7%. The only precinct to have a statistically significant drop in violence, and underfunded, understaffed, learning the ropes, all of these things, and we still did that. And so I think, a lot of people say, what can we do? Call and say that you support us. Talk to your council members and tell them, that you support Gideon's Army. I would also say, a lot of times people come out and they try to throw us under the bus, the commercials that that Republican group did, or, any of these things. Like, don't believe the hype, y'all. I'm a school teacher, a mom out here, just trying to save our children. And a lot of times racists, they'll say, well, why doesn't the Black community take care of itself? But then when we do, then they still fight against us. And so, like, I don't have time to fight against people who speak against us. And so, like, your voices, communicating to your friends and saying, look, this is what Gideon's Army really is. They are feeding the community. They have after school programs, grief therapy, grief camp. They partner with different organizations. They work with MNPD. They, all of these things. Like, your voices are important, equally as important as calling and helping us to secure this funding.
All right, so how, I think that's very, very well said. And there's a lot of questions on here about giving to and getting involved with Gideon's Army. I think your website is a good place to go look. I think it may have been posted earlier. Do you get the chance to go speak at churches, at community groups? I mean, this is a whole city issue. And what you're trying to do, you've taken a program that has started small and is starting to build and starting to show major success. So how do you continue to get the word out with particularly misperceptions about what your program is?
I do think, yes, the speaking engagements. And then, I mean, we have the love of the communities where we are. And so, I mean, heck, they with those commercials, they really tried to invalidate us, but then, like, their seat, it's been 14 years since that seat has been overturned. So I think that speaks volumes in itself, that the community and people are watching and know what we really are about and what we really stand for. News 2 tried to do a story called Nashville Killing Fields and completely invalidate the work that we've done. And it pretty much fell on deaf ears. Like, nobody was really paying attention to it. But yes, having opportunities to come and speak, having Zoom calls like these, inviting the children, inviting, our young adults. You're not a kid anymore, huh? No. To come and speak and hearing their stories, I think, is also very important as well. And people, you can donate on rebuildnorthnashville.com. Rebuildnorthnashville.com is the best place to donate. You can become a monthly donor. And, we'll, in the next couple weeks, we should have something launched to where you can, help to get other people to donate. Because we we want it to be as grassroots as possible so that we aren't always begging for money. We aren't always, petitioning the city for money, but that we can be as independently funded as possible so that we can be free to make the moves that we need to make. Another thing is that MDHA has a contract with MMPD, and I'm not sure, I'm trying to figure out like how much they get now, but it's also a possibility for some of that money to be shifted. If they're just coming and sitting and we're looking at taxpayer dollars, then why should we be paying our police officers? And like Hambino said, it's on camera where they just come and they sit and they're drinking their coffee and talking to each other, as opposed to being out and engaging with the community. And even that sometimes is unsafe. And I'm going to be bold enough to say it, that we've never had any Gideon's Army involved shootings. Like we like police involved shootings have happened on MDHA property. MMPD has kicked down doors, the wrong door in MDHA property. Like we aren't doing those things. Even with that young man who was running from the police and allegedly shot himself, if Gideon's Army had been called in, that young man would have been pulled to the side and he would have 9.5 times out of 10, he would have fallen in line with the structure that we have. He would still be here and we would be doing something with his life. We would be supporting him and helping him. And so, when you look at safety for the community, safety for the officers, for those people who really are concerned about officers, having Gideon's Army in the community is safer for them as well. And looking at Hambino's situation, and he was talking about the shootout in particular, that would have been a bloodbath without Hambino and the violence interrupters being there, either because the community would have shot these people up, they would have shot them up, or the police would have had to have been called in. And I'm sure somebody did call the police. Hambino didn't have time to think to do that. But by the time they got there, Hambino had already secured the situation and everything. But what recourse would MMPD have except to draw their guns and shoot? There is nothing else. And so looking at the contract that MDHA has with MMPD to see if any of those funds can be shifted, they don't have to completely eliminate MMPD, but they could share a little bit. They could share a little bit and help us be more robust so that we can support the work that they have going on. And then I think also just understanding that this is a system that we're dealing with, and it's not just people. You can replace Chief Drake with somebody else. You can replace Chief Anderson with Chief Drake. It's still the same system of policing that started in the South being slave patrol. So there's a mentality and there's a culture of policing that will always persist regardless of who takes it over. And in the situation, for example, with Cleveland Shaw, who was recently killed in the streets, no matter how good Cleveland was, no matter how much Cleveland turned his life around, no matter how many meals Cleveland fed and all of the things that the children said, MMPD would always try to pin something on Cleveland. They would always try to pin something on him, or make something his fault, that he would be with us. He wouldn't even be where, whatever it is they thought happened. And so just understanding that this is a system, that you can have good people in the system, but that the mentality and the culture still persists. The Gideon's Army is here for these children. We are here to work with people who are termed at risk, but they're not at risk. The community is at risk. The situations are at risk, but it is not the people. And I really need for Nashville to continue to believe in me, the school teacher that everybody knew and loved, and to believe in this work that has been birthed from these children. And for me, push the mayor to fund Gideon's Army. Talk to your council members about funding Gideon's Army. Please donate. We have a free store that you can give to. Like we have refrigerators now all around North Nashville in different places where you can go and you can put food in. If you want to know more, or if you want to help with that, you can contact Kate. Her number is 615-705-8187. 615-705-8187 and talk to her. But so many different ways that you can get plugged in. rebuildnorthnashville.com.
All right. So
Time's
I'm
up.
so appreciative that you've been on here. Jamel's had his hand up. We're right at the end of time, but Jamel, I'm going to recognize you because you've had your hand up for a few minutes. Go ahead.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I also wanted to mention that we're part of a coalition of groups that is working to build a people's budget. And I also wanted to mention that last year we surveyed over 8,000 people, and 83% of them were demanding that there be some city dollars going into the investment of violence interruption. I also wanted to mention that currently from last year's operating budget, the police are getting 213 million out of a $2 billion budget. So something as small as $6 million isn't a lot, especially when it comes to how much we already invest in policing and caging and surveilling Black kids, Black youth, and Black folks across Davidson County. I also wanted to mention we are currently working to get a guaranteed basic income in Nashville, in North Nashville specifically, to both repair the harm that was caused by anti-Black policies and racist public officials that drove an interstate directly through North Nashville. And what we're hoping to do is we're really hoping to demonstrate to the city what it looks like to eliminate poverty for a group of people in Nashville by trusting them to be able to spend their own dollars in whatever way that they see fit, and restoring the dignity that was also stripped away from them. And I'm gonna drop some links, but a couple of things that folks can do. They can sign up to be a part of our People's Movement Assemblies, where we're building our own city budget with the hope that our city budget will be passed using participatory budgeting, participatory democracy, and a process that is centered on people.
Mm-hmm.
You can also donate to both Gideon's Army and our Moving Nashville Forward pilot project, where we're hoping to put 100 different community members on a guaranteed basic income to where they can literally get their needs met. These type of pilots are popping up across the country. There's one in Chicago. Oakland is giving all of its local residents $500 for 24 months, unrestricted. And in addition to their social services, Stockton just finished a guaranteed basic income pilot. Mississippi, Jacksonville, Florida, North Carolina, these things are popping up across the country. So we really hope that when we do our Moving Nashville Forward pilot, that we can both demonstrate to the city what it looks like to radically trust its citizens and its residents, but also deliver a roadmap to community members that are struggling with poverty, and see direct cash transfers and a guaranteed basic income as a way to get their needs met.
All right. So Jamel, so we're out of time. What I need to ask you one more question. If people want to learn more, I know we've gotten phone numbers, there's been posts up there. If they lose all that, what should they do to find out more information? Do they go to Gideon's Army? What's the best way to find out information?
For sure. So if you just type in Moving Nashville Forward, that's all you need to type in. You will get, I also dropped the links in the chat. You will get a ton of information on what we're trying to do with our guaranteed basic income policy. But before, I do want to say that we have talked about a lot of issues here. And I also want to say that all of these issues are solvable, but it's going to take organization, it's going to take community pressure, and it is going to take organizing outside of institutions that Rashida brought up earlier, that historically has been meant to both harm, cage, and further harm, whether it's punitive discipline or bad accountability or policing or cages. We have to organize outside of those things, and we have to activate ourselves as community members first. So I just wanted to leave with that, and I appreciate any questions that anybody have. I'm always available.
All right. So Jamel, thank you. Hambino, you have your hand up, and then I'm going to Rashida to close the program. Hambino.
Yes, sir. And I just wanted to, whatever perspective anyone have on Gideon's Army, please allow your perspective to be formed on evidence, not just hearsay. You know, we say this is a God-built country, and if you look at Jesus, you know, and I hate to kind of get religious with it, but he was persecuted, you know, by the people, you know, and he was a righteous man. We're a righteous organization. We don't participate in anything illegal. We don't go into communities with anything illegal. We don't go into communities with any kind of violent mentality or anything. We are a righteous organization. So, you know, whatever perspective you have on Gideon's Army, it should be the right one, not hearsay, because we're a righteous organization. You know what I mean? And I'm a violence interrupter, like I said, with no guns, no. I don't have anything to protect myself, and I'm a husband and father, 8 children, and I just get out there and put my life on the line because it's necessary.
And
That's
Bina,
all I
thank
wanted
you.
to say.
I appreciate it. Rashida, you get the last word, or Dontrell, you're the last, you get the last word on this one.
We just want to say thank you to Nashville. I love this city so much, giving my heart and soul to this city, to our children. And let's think outside the box. Let's think outside the box and let's build together. Let's be a team and
Unit.
yes, unified force for children. Placing children first at all times. Eliminate the root causes of the prison pipeline. Save our children from death and incarceration and guide them on a secure path to success. We will not stop until the pipeline is dismantled. We will not quit on our children.
And we will not.
All right. Thank you all for being on this program. An amazing discussion. I may want to have everybody come back because there were so many questions that we didn't get to, but thank you for being here. Such an amazing conversation. We'll be back next week with Ralph Schultz from the chamber. So next Saturday, everybody be safe. Rashida, take care of Dontrell and take care of that eye. All right. And take care of all the people that you all try to take care of. Okay. Gideon's Army does find an amazing job.
Thank y'all for
Thank
listening.
you.
Thank you all. Everybody be safe. Have a good rest of the weekend.